The snowstorm hit Wolf Point harder than anyone had predicted. Winds howled like wounded creatures, snow flew sideways, and the roads turned into ribbons of white that swallowed tire tracks in seconds. Riley Quinn gripped the wheel of the ambulance like it was the last stable thing in her life. At 34, the former Army field medic had seen chaos, but nothing like this. Beside her, Marcus Darnell, seasoned EMT and father of 3, quietly read off updates from dispatch, his voice calm, even as visibility dropped to near zero. They were en route to check on a cabin that hadn't responded to storm warnings when it happened. Marcus leaned forward, squinting into the blur. "What is that?" Riley tapped the brakes. At first it looked like a lump of snow. Then it moved. Slowly, deliberately. A figure emerged in the headlights. Large, four-legged. A dog. A German shepherd. It didn't bark. It didn't move off the road. It simply stood there, coated in frost. Its amber eyes locked onto the windshield like it had been waiting. Marcus rolled down the window, yelling over the wind, "Hey, move, boy!" But the dog didn't budge. Riley felt something stir in her chest. Not fear, not suspicion, but instinct. She opened the door. "Riley, what are you doing?" Marcus called out. She didn't answer. The cold slapped her instantly. Snow pelted her face as she stepped forward, and the dog turned just slightly, then looked back, like a guide. And something in Riley, something buried deep from her years in war zones and tents, whispered, "Follow him." The dog moved with quiet purpose, never rushing, never straying from the narrow trail it carved through the snow. Riley followed, the beam of her flashlight bouncing off flurries. Marcus, muttering under his breath, trudged behind her, his boots crunching through the frozen crust. $10 says we're following this mutt to a frozen deer carcass," he grumbled. Riley didn't reply. She couldn't. Every part of her was alert, her instincts sharp. The dog kept glancing back, as if making sure they hadn't lost their way. There was something about the way it walked, not frantic, not wild, but almost trained, like a soldier on a mission. Then it stopped. They had reached a small dip in the terrain, sheltered slightly by pines. The snow here looked wrong, uneven, a gentle mound with strange contours. The dog stepped aside and let out a soft, low whine. Riley stepped forward, crouched, and brushed away snow with her gloves. Her hands hit something hard. Fabric. Then a strap. Then, oh God, a tiny hand. Marcus sucked in a breath. "Is that a baby?" Riley whispered. They dropped to their knees, digging with frantic hands. Riley's fingers found a small, frost-covered bundle swaddled in an old military jacket. She peeled it back and saw the face, a baby girl. Her lips were tinged blue, her body cold. But then, just barely, her chest rose. "She's breathing," Riley said, voice cracking. "She's alive." Marcus didn't wait. He sprinted back to the ambulance for the pediatric kit. Riley shed her jacket without hesitation and wrapped it around the baby, pulling her close. Her own breath shook as she whispered, "Hold on, sweetheart, just hold on." The dog, still and silent, sat a few feet away, watching, not panicked, not pacing, just waiting. The ambulance barreled down the snow-choked road, its siren no match for the storm's fury. Riley sat in the back, the infant swaddled in her parka, cradled against her chest. Each rise and fall of the baby's breath was a miracle she wasn't ready to let slip away. She didn't know the child's name. She didn't even know if the baby had one. But in this moment, that didn't matter. She was alive. That was enough. Marcus kept his eyes fixed on the road, lips tight, hands clenched on the wheel. As he veered back onto the main path, Riley glanced through the rear window, and there he was. The German shepherd stood in the storm, motionless, his eyes locked on them. Riley opened the back doors and called softly, "Come on, boy." Without hesitation, the dog leapt in. He didn't bark, didn't whine. He simply walked over to where the baby lay swaddled in Riley's arms, sat down beside them, and didn't move. Not once. Even as the sirens blared and the tires spun against the ice, he stayed curled near the infant, as if his mission hadn't ended yet. They reached Wolf Point Medical just shy of midnight. The storm raged on, but the ER staff was ready. When Riley burst through the doors, everything snapped into action. "Newborn, hypothermic, barely breathing," she called. Nurses rushed. A silver-haired doctor took the infant gently from her arms. Riley gave the full report, voice taut with urgency. Minutes later, a cry, "Smallton! Defiant!" broke the silence. "She's responding," the doctor said. "We've got a shot." And then, as Riley exhaled, the doors slammed open once more. A woman stormed in, soaked in snow, eyes wide with fear. "My baby!" she cried. "Where's my baby?" Riley turned, and everything changed. Elena stood frozen in the doorway of the nursery, her eyes locked on the tiny form beneath layers of blankets. Emily, her daughter, was alive, warm, breathing. Tears spilled freely as she rushed forward, knees buckling beside the crib. Her hand hovered, trembling, before gently touching the baby's chest. The rise and fall beneath her palm was all she needed. Just inches away, lying still but alert, was the German Shepherd. Elena turned to him, her voice breaking. "Lucky?" He didn't move, just blinked once, slow, calm, present. She reached out and stroked his head. "You stayed with her. You didn't leave." Her voice caught. "Thank you." Lucky's eyes softened. He laid his head back down beside the bassinet. It was a moment no one in the room dared to disturb. Quiet, sacred, and carved from something older than words. Later, wrapped in a hospital blanket, Elena sat beside Riley in the hallway. Her hands cupped a warm mug she never drank from. The tears hadn't fully stopped. "His name is Lucky," she finally said, voice low. "And he's not just a dog. Not to us." Riley glanced over, curious. "My husband, David, served overseas. That's where he met Lucky. They were partners in a military canine unit. Rescue missions, disaster zones, you name it. Lucky saved lives. Until the day something exploded too close." Her voice faltered. "David survived. Lucky was badly hurt. Leg shattered, lungs damaged. They retired him. Said he couldn't serve anymore, but David refused to leave him behind. 'This dog gave everything,' he said. 'Now it's my turn.' So Lucky came home. He healed, slowly. Never quite the same, but loyal to the bone. And when I got pregnant, he changed, always near me. When Emily was born, he slept beneath her crib every single night." Her voice cracked again. "He wasn't just there for us. He became our promise. And tonight, he kept it." Elena's voice faded, but the memory did not. For a moment, the hospital hallway dissolved, replaced by the sharp sting of wind, the crackle of glass, and the helpless sound of a mother calling out into the dark. It was the night Wolf Point disappeared under white. The warnings had come all afternoon. Cold fronts, high winds, a blizzard building fast. Elena had received every alert, every text. She'd checked the windows twice, laid extra blankets by the fireplace, made sure Emily was fed and warm. But nothing prepared her for what hit Wolf Point that night. The wind roared like a living thing, and the world went black. The power vanished in an instant. Windows rattled, the roof groaned, and then a crack, a scream of pressure, and the cabin shuddered violently. Elena's scream vanished into the wind as the room exploded into chaos. Shelves toppled, glass shattered, the door tore open, ripped off its hinges. She grabbed for Emily, but her arms found only air. "Emily!" she screamed, heart splitting in two. "Emily!" She searched blindly in the storm's fury, crawled across the splintered floor, calling until her voice broke, but the child was gone. Lucky had been thrown hard when the cabin split. His ribs ached. One hind leg dragged slightly in the snow, but he pushed on. He sniffed the air, frantic, sharp, until he caught it, the faint, sweet scent of milk and baby skin. He followed it, step by trembling step, until he reached a narrow drift where the snow had formed a soft hollow. Something moved, a muffled cry. Lucky dug with his front paws, snow spraying behind him. His breathing was heavy, pained, but he didn't stop. Then, warmth, fabric, movement. Emily. She was half buried, her little body curled in a twisted baby blanket, face barely visible beneath frost. Her lips were trembling, her cheeks mottled red. Lucky pressed his nose to hers, exhaled warmth. Then he circled around her tiny form and lay down against her side. His body curved to match hers, paws crossed gently over the blanket. The wind howled, the snow stung, but Lucky didn't move. Every so often he'd nudge her cheek with his nose, just enough to feel her breathe. And all through the night, while the world roared and trees bent and broke around them, Lucky stayed. Not as a soldier, not as a dog, but as a promise. Word spread quickly through the hospital about the baby found in the snow, about the dog who never left her side. Doctors, nurses, even janitors paused by the nursery window just to get a glimpse of the shepherd who guarded like a soldier and waited like a saint. Elena didn't leave Emily's side for hours. She sat by the crib, whispering lullabies, brushing frost-burned skin with trembling fingers. But her eyes kept drifting to Lucky. He hadn't moved, still curled beside the bassinet, still watching. Finally, Elena rose and knelt beside him. Her hand rested gently on his head. "I don't have the words," she said softly. "You saved her. You protected her when I couldn't. You kept your promise, Lucky." His tail thumped once. Riley, standing at a distance, felt a lump rise in her throat. She'd seen trauma, she'd seen survival, but this was something else. David's voice echoed in Elena's memory. He's more than a dog. He listens, he feels, he understands. And tonight, Lucky had understood more than anyone. He had felt the storm and walked into it, not because he was told to, but because love asked him to. Emily recovered quickly, stronger than anyone expected. Within a week, her lungs were clear, her cheeks full of color, and her eyes bright with life. She went home, wrapped in a quilt Elena's mother had made, carried in her mother's arms. But she wasn't alone. Lucky walked beside them, step for step, his pace slow but steady. He hadn't left her since the storm, and no one, not Elena, not the doctors, had the heart to make him. From that day forward, they were inseparable. Emily learned to crawl with her fingers buried in his fur. Her first steps were taken with one hand clutching Lucky's collar. When she laughed, Lucky wagged his tail. When she cried, he rested his head in her lap until she quieted. He was her shadow, her shield, her constant. Neighbors in Wolf Point would smile when they saw the pair, the girl with sunlight in her hair and the old shepherd who never let her out of sight. Riley visited often, each time bringing a new toy or soft blanket. She never said much to Lucky, but every visit ended the same, a silent nod, a gentle pat on the head. Because some bonds don't need words. Some love stories begin in the storm and never let go. Years passed like seasons in Wolf Point, slow, quiet, marked by snowfall and spring thaw. Emily grew, from toddler to child, from babbling words to stories whispered to Lucky beneath blankets. She lost a tooth, won a ribbon at the county fair, learned how to ride a bike, all with Lucky close behind. But time, kind to Emily, was less forgiving to Lucky. His muzzle grayed, his steps grew slower. On cold mornings, he limped just a little before finding his pace. Elena noticed first the way he hesitated at stairs, how he napped longer, how his ears didn't always catch distant sounds. Still, he never left Emily's side, until one evening something changed. Lucky didn't eat. He whined softly, not from hunger, but something deeper. When Emily reached out to pet him, he leaned into her touch, then lay down and didn't get back up. Elena rushed him to the clinic. The diagnosis came like a sharp wind, a tumor, large and invasive, wrapped around his lower abdomen. Surgery was possible, but the odds weren't good. a 30% chance at best. Emily cried. She wrapped her arms around Lucky, buried her face in his fur. "Don't go," she whispered. "You promised." David, on leave from deployment, returned as soon as he heard. When he walked into the room and saw Lucky curled beside Emily's feet, his throat tightened. They decided together, one chance, one fight, just like before. The night before the surgery, Emily lay on the floor beside him, hand on his chest, feeling every breath. "He saved me once," she told her dad. David nodded, eyes shining. "Now it's our turn." The morning of the surgery came cold and quiet. Alina packed Emily's backpack with books, snacks, and the stuffed bear Lucky used to nuzzle. David drove them to the clinic, his fingers white around the steering wheel. Lucky lay on a soft blanket in the back seat, calm as ever, as if he understood what lay ahead. At the clinic, the vet, Dr. Harris, a gentle man with silver-framed glasses, greeted them with a solemn nod. "It's going to be long," he said, "delicate." David knelt beside Lucky, pressing his forehead gently to the dog's. "You've already done the hard part," he whispered. "Now let us fight for you." Emily kissed Lucky's nose. Then the doors closed, and the wait began. They stayed in the small clinic lobby, hours stretching like years. Emily sat curled in a chair, blanket over her knees, bear hugged tight to her chest. Elena paced. David stared at the floor, lips moving in silent prayers. 6 hours, then 8. At 10, Dr. Harris appeared. His scrubs were stained. His hands trembled slightly, but he smiled. "He made it," he said. "The tumor was deep, but we got it all. He's stable, still sleeping, but he's going to be okay." Emily dropped her bear and ran into her mother's arms. David exhaled, tears sliding down his cheeks. Elena looked at the recovery room window. Lucky lay still, bandaged and breathing slow. But he was there, still fighting, still keeping his promise. Spring arrived in Wolf Point not with flowers, but with warmth. Sunlight filtered through pine branches, snow melted into creeks that ran clear and cold. Birds returned, singing soft reminders of life. Lucky came home, still healing, still groggy, but home. Emily made him a bed beside hers, a thick blanket, a pillow, and a line of her stuffed animals standing guard. Every night she read him a story. Every morning she greeted him first. Elena hung his leash by the door, but never used it. Lucky didn't wander anymore. He didn't need to. David returned to duty weeks later, hugging his daughter, kissing his wife, and kneeling beside the dog, who had kept them whole. "I owe you more than I can say," he murmured. Lucky thumped his tail once. Neighbors brought treats. Children left drawings on the porch, pictures of a brave dog beside a baby wrapped in pink. The story had spread, and no one in Wolf Point ever called Lucky just a dog again. He was a guardian, a promise kept, a part of the family. As summer neared, Emily would lie in the grass beside Lucky, her tiny hand resting on his side, feeling his chest rise and fall in rhythm with hers. "I remember the snow," she told him one day, but only a little. Lucky didn't move. He didn't need to, because she was safe and he was home.